today we have with us dear Baba lovers Noasherwan Anzar. Once again, in the last few weeks we've had him, and today he is here especially for sharing some important, precious stories and anecdotes and experiences about the new life period of Baba that began yesterday, as on 16th October 1949. Today he is going to be in conversation with Peter Nordeen, who is going to ask him questions, and the topic is going to be living the new life. So a little about our both speakers for today. Naosherwan, as we lovingly know him as Nosh, is the editor and publisher of the Glow International, which was launched under Baba's direction in 1966. Naosherwan has been committed to preserving, documenting and sharing of Meher Baba's life, work and teachings, and has some amazing Baba books for all of us, the younger generation and everyone to soak into Beloved's life and work more and more. Towards that end, he has launched Beloved Archives, a secular non-profit foundation in the United States in Hamilton, New Jersey. And he was just about 2 months old when he first met Baba and has, grown up under Baba's direct spiritual guidance. So today we will hear some more with Naosherwan. This was for the birth of Glow magazine, and now on our co-hosting speaker Peter Nordeen, who I love this part that he is a builder by vocation, but by avocation he is a Meher Baba historian and has studied Baba's life and teachings over 45 years. Peter has also been a resident and been lucky to be with many old disciples while they were still alive. And today Peter is here to converse and ask questions to Naosherwan. He's also been someone who has done a very poignant biographical documentary called God in Human Form, which we have seen a lot of times in Mehrabad during dinner time as well at the dining hall. So here is Peter and Naosherwan for all of us.
This is the placeholder slide. It's a painting of the caravan of the new life done by Diane Cobb many years back. At the outset, I would like to thank Angela, Roshni, Prakash, Peter, and all those who've helped put this program together. Normally, when I make a presentation on the new life, since my family was an active participant in the new life, and our home, 36 Lytton Road in Dehra Dun, was the headquarters of the new life during Baba's travels in those years, in 1950 particularly. I wanted to particularly point out, I don't know if all of you can see the background the background behind me. What you see is a chair on which Meher Baba sat during the new life in 1946, and then again in 1950, and on it is placed a photograph of Meher Baba taken in 1950. So, to begin with, my spiritual journey has been a long one, but not an arduous one, because it was with Meher Baba. People often ask me, when did you come to Meher Baba? And my answer simply is, I did not come to Meher Baba came to me. And that was because I was 2 months old when Meher Baba came to our home in 1956, carried me around, 1946, traveled around, carried me in his arms from room to room for a very long time. He met my mother, father, my sister, Mahrukh Modi, who's also on the Zoom today. She and I are the two survivors of the Bhiksha that Baba gave in 1950. There are, of course, other survivors as well, but we two are the only ones who were able to give Bhiksha to Baba in 1950. So,
may I interrupt?
Yes, sir.
For just a minute. You know, a lot of people around the world, Nash, don't know much about the area of India where you grew up. And
Okay.
of course, we know that Baba went there first, at least in 1924. He spent a lot of time in the Dehra Dun Rishikesh area. Can you spend 1 minute explaining that area to people?
Absolutely, absolutely. Today we'll narrate the journey of the new life, starting from Mehrabad all the way to, and round it off with Hyderabad. But since Peter has asked about Dehra Dun, which was in the middle of the new life journey, more or less, the Dehra Dun is on the foothills of the Himalayas. It was a place that Baba visited many times for his must tours, but more than Dehra Dun, apart from the fact that his new Dehra Dun was his base during the new life in part of 1949 and 50, he did most of his new life work, contacting musts and so forth, in a place called Rishikesh and Hardwar. These are two Hindu religious places where the Kumbh Mela is also held in Hardwar, where millions of people come. And Meher Baba had taken a group of his disciples to the Kumbh Mela as well in 1950 during the new life. So the entire area is steeped in spiritual tradition. But Dehra Dun became his headquarters during the new life, and today I'll share several stories of his new life days. But Dehra Dun, to give you a little additional idea, is about 150 miles from New Delhi, which is the capital of India. So this will give you a bit of an idea of where Dehra Dun is. It gets very cold in the winter, and just a short distance away from Dehra Dun is a very popular hill station. It's about 25 miles from Dehra Dun, a place called Mussoorie, where Baba also spent some time. So this is a little overview of Dehra Dun. So today I'd like to start the new life journey. Now, why do I have a picture of Meher Baba at Meherazad in 1948? This was the time when Meher Baba first came to Meherazad, and a group of his Western disciples came to Meherazad. Norina and Elizabeth were already in India, and they came here in Meherazad, and Ivy Deuce and Charmian, her daughter, Murshida Ivy Deuce and her daughter Charmian came, and this photograph was taken by Charmian. Next. This is the lock and key. So it was actually inaugurated, Meherazad was inaugurated on August 27, 1948. Next. Now, this story, I don't know whether it's appeared in print, but this is a sewing machine that belonged to the women Mandali. And why have I put it over here? It's because inexplicably, one day, Baba called his women Mandali and said, I want you to go to Pune, and I want you to do a little bit of shopping. Buy a few clothes, buy a few, some pieces of cloth, and you want to make some saris or salwar kameez or whatever. And they were very surprised. But they went and they met with the Jasawala family, and they bought a few clothes, and they bought pieces of cloth, and they made clothes. And this is the sewing machine they used to sew. So there was no reason that Baba had given, but they were all surprised because Baba never made a request like that. Peter, did you have to add anything to this?
No, nothing to add.
Okay.
Except that, you know, there was a conversation a few months back about sewing machines, particularly in the new life. And this is a clear explanation for part of that story.
Next. So, Meher Baba had been given broad hints to everybody, to the women, to the men, about that he was going to, that his whole life that they had lived through, that the Mandli had lived through, would be coming to an end, and that he would be starting a new phase of his life. One of the things, but nobody seemed to know what he was talking about. He also predicted a great personal disaster for himself, and that happened at the end of the new life in the United States, in Oklahoma, which was in '52. But nobody seemed to know what that meant. Next. So before proceeding to Mount Abu in 1949, Baba had instructed everyone, and he was very emphatic, not to have any physical contact with the opposite sex, and he even ordered everyone not to shake hands. And what surprised everybody was that in the course of conversation, Baba would often talk about the disposal of the bodies of the Mandli in the event of death. This is something that he had never ever talked about. Next. So at the beginning of August '49, Baba had informed the Mandli that he would be coming to Mehrabad from Meherzad to discuss and decide about the Mandli's futures, and that he would hold 5 days of meetings. So please tell me if I'm going too fast on these slides. I hope I'm giving you enough time to read them.
Good pace. There, you have a lot of material. It's a good pace.
Okay, good. So, next. Okay, so when the first day that Baba came, he came. They were gathered. The women were gathered in the East Room. Now, the East Room, Peter has written an article for the Glow about the East Room. It's the one where the women Mandli, Mira and the Mani and the women Mandli stayed. It's very near the water tank and towards that direction. Right, Peter?
It was the original water tank from the World War I camp that was converted into rooms during Meher Ashram. And it was convenient for the women to occupy it when Baba wanted to do that sequestered ashram for women on the hill. And so it became, the East Room became the center for that core group, small group around Mera. Yes.
Right. So whenever Baba called the women Mandli on top of Mehrabad Hill, everybody had a very small stool. So they would bring these stools and come and sit around Baba. Mera would be sitting next to Baba, and everybody would sit around a circle. Now, Baba had not given a reason as to why he had come and why he wanted all of them to be in the East Room. But they gathered. Elizabeth and Norina had already left for the United States with instructions to set up the Meher Center and for the Meher Universal Spiritual Center. And Baba was giving a very enigmatic smirk or a smile while everybody settled in. And nobody seemed to know what was on Baba's mind. But there was a certain seriousness that Mera and Mani sensed. So Baba started off by telling them that you are great jewels who have served me for so many years. You're wonderful jewels. You've been very fortunate. You've lived in the ashram with me. Now I want you to tell me that what I am about to say to you, whether you will obey me 100%. So one by one, he called everybody and everybody said that, yes, Baba, we will obey you 100%. So, so on the first day of the meetings, Baba mentioned to the women Mandli and separately to the men Mandli, that will be coming in a couple of slides later. He told the women Mandli that everyone will be sent away to their respective homes. If they have their families, they can go and stay with their families. Otherwise, homes will be arranged for them, or jobs would be arranged for them, or they'll be told where to go. So Rano and Kitty, who were there, was sent to Bombay to become, they became school teachers. Kitty Irani stayed with Arnabaz Darachanji and joined the Japanese consulate. Khorshid and her mother, Sunu, were sent to stay with Mirji. So everybody who had a home. Now, one of the things that is not discussed anywhere is how devastated the families of these women Mandli were. I mean, devastated is an understatement. And I'll tell you a little anecdote which is not recorded. What happened was that when Baba told the Jasawala family that this was the action he was going to take, everybody will be sent to their respective homes, everything would be sold, the properties would be sold. In essence, the Mandli would be disbanded. And Irich would be with him. Irich Jasawala is Meher Baba's chief male disciple. He would be with Meher Baba, but that Merwan would look after the family, the Jasawala family. I'm zeroing in on only one anecdote. And that Merwan would be hired by Meherji and he would be able to support the rest of the family. Now, Irich and Merwan's father's name was Papa. Everybody called him Papa Jasawala. Papa meaning father. Now, what happened was that Papa had decided that he would not be a part. He was not one of the Yeswalas. So he was going to be at home and be with his wife and his daughter. So he was the one who was impacted the most. He went into a deep depression. And one day, in the course of conversation with Manu, who was a grown woman, he slapped her. Now, he had never raised a finger on any of his family members or anyone for that matter. And he was shocked at his behavior. And he went into a corner and he sobbed and he sobbed and he sobbed in guilt and in remorse. So and he continued to be depressed till his family raised him up and promised that everything would be well. So this is just one instance of how this decision of Meher Baba had on the women monthly. In fact, when this Baba was actually saying this, Khurshid, who was in the room, started sobbing away and came to Baba till Baba petted her and said, all will be well. So all of them had a tremendous impact. And this is normally not thought of or talked about. So then Baba said that they should go to their respective rooms and whatever. And by the afternoon, everybody should bring and put on in front in Merazad all that they thought was valuable, which meant crockery, cutlery, knives, everything from the kitchen, from the plates, saucers, furniture, fixtures, everything. The cars that Elizabeth had given were sold, generators were sold, cattle, and all the property had to be sold. Now we'll come to the property, the disposal of the property. So there were two important properties that were in Baba's name. One was Mehrabad and the other was Merazad. So Merji said that he would take over the responsibility of Mehrabad. And Nariman Darachandji said that he would take over the responsibility of Merazad. And then Baba added that if you want to dispose it off, that's entirely up to you. You're free to do so. But they said that no, Baba, these properties are sacrosanct and we will not sell them. We will preserve them. Whatever happens in the future, we will see. So as you can see, Nariman and Merji expressed the desire to take over Merazad and Mehrabad. So, and then next. So Baba gave the women members, the women monthly, 4 alternatives. You can go with some member of the family, you can work for a living, you can do what you like and have nothing more to do with me, or you leave everything to me and do exactly as I say. Next. Now the 4 women who were with Baba were Mani, Mehra, Gohar, and Meru. But Baba did not give out these names. He did not say that these were the 4 women who were going to accompany him. Because there were so many other women that he could have taken with him. So Gohar, for some odd reason, thought that she would not be taken on the new life, and she contemplated suicide. The moment this thought entered her mind, Baba called her and said, "What are you thinking?" Baba often did that. And she burst out into tears and said, "Baba, I was contemplating suicide because I believed you would not take me." And he said, "What made you think that way? Why would I not take you? You are one of the 4. And she was relieved. So, then we go to the next slide, and then we'll come back to this slide, Prakash. The next slide, and then we go to the, yes. So let me talk about this slide. This was the first day of when Baba declared the new life. So all the men had gathered in Mehrabad. And before that, on August 1, 1949, there was forms had been sent to everybody, including to my father, asking that whether if Baba took the step, he called it the new life, in the new life of traveling throughout the country, begging for food, would they be willing to come? So there were three kinds of forms. One form was, of course, it was the same form, but one form was for yes walas, yes meaning, yes Meher Baba, we will join you on the new life. No walas, Baba, for one reason or another, and you had to give the reason, we cannot join you. And the third was the arrangement walas. So like, for example, Sarosh and Nariman and Merji were arrangement walas. Then there was Minu Kharas, who was a yes wala, but for his accentuating circumstances, he couldn't join. My father was a no wala because his wife had a tumor in her breast, my mother, and she was under treatment, so he said no to joining Baba. But there's one little story that is of tremendous significance that I'd like to narrate over here. One of the yes walas was a man called Manik Mehta. Some of you who are on this Zoom today will be familiar with him. Now, he used to conduct a Baba center in Bombay and share stories about Baba, Baba's teachings, and so forth. He had long hair and he had a group of his own. Now, as it happens to a lot of people, he was very attached to his group, and the group was very attached to him. So, hold it. So he comes back and, Prakash, go back to the old slide. So he goes back to, he comes to Baba and he says, Baba, I cannot join you right now. Give me 1 month's time when I've built a hall in your name and there'll be a lot of activity. Give me some time to, I think he said towards the end of the year or something, and I'll then join you. And Baba said, all right. So days went by, months went by, no word from him. And what had happened is that towards the end, he said no, because he was so attached to his group that he then became sort of a spiritual master, like one representing Meher Baba in Bombay as a kind of a guru of sorts. And Irach often narrated this story to warn people that it is very easy to assume the mantle of godhood or avatarhood or sadguruship, but be very careful. It can really take you downhill. And this was the example he often narrated. This was Manik Mehta in the new life. So I'm holding on to this slide for one more reason. One of the Yeswalas, very devoted, ardent disciple of Meher Baba, follower of Meher Baba, was Daulat Singh. Now, I'm not going to mention Daulat Singh's story in the new life. I'll narrate it later. But Daulat Singh was there, and when Baba was narrating these, was telling everybody about the new life, he was instructing Ghani the course of the new life. He told everybody to take a break during the proceedings. So Ghani, who was a smoker, he stepped out and he started smoking. And Daulat Singh was chatting with him. At that moment, Baba passed them by and he took out the cigarette from Ghani's mouth and put it on Daulat Singh's lips. Now, those who know about Sikhism, it's absolute taboo. The greatest sin a Sikh can commit is to smoke. So he pulled out the cigarette from Ghani and put it on Daulat Singh. Daulat Singh took a couple of puffs. Baba took the cigarette and put it back on Ghani and turned to Daulat Singh and said, "You have passed." Now, this is a little interesting anecdote of the early days. Peter, any thoughts, any questions?
Oh, continue, please.
Okay. So we go to the next slide. So the early companions were invited with prayer books, Bible, Quran, Gita, Avastha, so on and so forth. And Baba had them read. This is the Mehrabad Mandli Hall that you see over here. And all of them were asked to read portions from their prayer books. The early companions read from the prayer books. Next.
By the way, can we just stop and these two photographs
Yes.
were taken on August 18th in the hall, the main hall at Mehrabad. In the previous photograph, you see the four men praying there.
Yes.
This is something typical of these types of ceremonies Baba had throughout the New Life, though left is Coxsaheb. He was not on the New Life, but one of the old disciples of Baba. Now, he was aging at this point. Kale Mama also aging. He died a few years after this. He was reading the Gita, Coxsaheb, the Quran. Duncan, of course, was in the New Life. Kaikabad is reading the Avesta. He was in the New Life, but not as a traveling companion. Nash will probably remark about him later in Dehra Dun. This is a very significant event here. Go to the next slide, please. Dr. Ghani was probably a central figure as a medium in the New Life and all the work that was being done there. It's an amazing thing. He also died by the end of the New Life.
Mm.
He's placing his hands on those four books of which the prayers were said, and Baba's dictating then a prayer to him that he reads out to the group gathered there. Very significant event here that Padri happened to catch because he had his camera handy. Okay.
Next. Okay, so this is a picture of Meher Baba with his New Life companions. I'm going to point out to this bearded man sitting on the ground. His name was Baba Das. We will talk about him later. So these are the companions who were in the New Life. Yeah, this man. This is, we'll talk about him later. And I mentioned Minu Kharas in the beginning. This is, the fifth man is Minu Kharas. One other person who was a no-wala was surprisingly Padri. And why was he a no-wala? It was because, and Baba was very surprised when he turned in his form and it said no. Why was he a no-wala? The reason he was a no-wala was because he had a problem with anger. And one of the conditions of the New Life was you could not express your feelings of anger or disappointment or anything. You had to be cheerful all the time. And Padri said, Baba, I cannot do that. So I'm not going to be a part of your travels. As it turns out, Padri was an integral part of bringing the caravan and so forth. And so several of the people, like my father, who was a no-wala, became an integral part of the New Life one way or the other. You were saying something, Peter?
Yes, just a clarification on that, because I had a conversation with Padri about this point.
Yes.
This example of Padri was just, he said, a private, personal thing between them. He wanted Padri to say no, to make an example, but there were practical reasons he wanted Padri out as a link for logistics. And as you say, in the end, he ended up spending more time with Baba in the new life than most of the companions.
Right.
Because he was constantly being called to serve with the other companions, doing things sometimes, as in the Mananash work at Marazad later, that the companions were not supposed to take part in. So there he was, but there were practical reasons, he said.
Right.
Baba wanted him to say no, to make an impact on all those other people. So he did that. He would be, somebody asked Marwan Jasawal about Padre saying no to the new life. And he just shook his head and said, there have been many new lives and old lives for Padre, even by that point.
And Mansari, who asked Baba if she could stay on at Mehrabad, Baba very reluctantly agreed, but said that she was on her own. And as it turned out, Padre was there, so he could keep an eye on her. So that was a nice one. Next, please. Okay, this was a farewell of the old life companions on October 16, 1949. And this was something that was read in Baba's presence. Next. I'm not going to read all this, but on the morning of Saturday, 15th October, Baba paid a final visit to Mehrabad to inspect the traveling kits containing the items to be taken by each of those accompanying him. Baba was 55 years old at that time, and these are the companions. There were 20 of them, and these are their ages of the companions as well. There was a prayer. Baba did not say a prayer at any time to God, but during the new life, he said prayers several times. So this was the first prayer for help that Baba offered to God. During the past 28 years, he had not addressed it. In fact, the Mandli was so stunned to hear Baba say this prayer that they forgot to say Amen. May God help Baba to definitely take this step, which he's taking, to give up everything and to go away irrevocably. So that from October 16, when he enters the new life, there will be no turning back.
Prakash, can you go back to the shot where Gani has his hands on the books? That's it. This is the event, Nash, where you just mentioned. This was that prayer that Baba had dictated, where they were so shocked they didn't say Amen.
Right, right. Okay, next. Okay, so we've gone through this. I hope you've had a chance to read it. These are the four women, Mani, Mera, Meru, and Gohar, who were four women in the new life. I've already narrated the little anecdote about Gohar. And Erich often mentioned about how they were, when they were leaving Merazad, Mera was finding it extremely difficult to leave the bungalow, and that everybody was waiting for her because she had never come out in the open, so she was feeling shy. Finally, Erich arranged a little separation in the car because they had to go in a car from Merazad to the railway tracks. And this was one of the instances of Mera coming out in the open for the first time. It was like a beginning for Mera. Next. Now, when everything was sold, it's interesting and it's a little funny to know that those who had traveled abroad, like Arnabas and Nariman, Darachanji, they used to bring gifts for Baba and for the women Mandli, and they had brought an entire tea set and a dinner set for the Mandli, and this was in Merazad. And then when Baba disposed of all the property, including the cutlery and the crockery and the cups and saucers and plates and everything, Arnavas bought it back. She paid in the general fund and bought it back. And then she donated this set to Beloved Archives, which we have preserved in the archives. So this was from the new life. Next. So in all this, Baba mentioned that there would be an interval of relaxation for 10 days, an interval of training in Belgaum, and from January 1, 1950, there would be, the new life would be launched with 100% hopelessness and helplessness. And then the very important point here is being cheerful and happy. So spells of despondency, annoyance, and disgust will assail you, but you should try not to show it on your face. Anger might come, but you should not express it. Next. Okay, so they go, the first stop is at a place called Supa. This is a photograph of that rest house, which is today a public works department. It's completely renovated, and if some of you saw the newsletter from the trust, it shows a renovated rest house at Supa. Now I want to touch a little bit about what some of the thoughts of Mani Irani. So Mani said that Baba walked the new life. He walked the new life on behalf of us all. In fact, he gave birth to the new life. The Mandli simply followed in his footsteps. So one day in Mandli Hall, somebody, a Westerner, asked Mani, give us your candid view. What was your first feeling when you heard Meher Baba say that he was going to abandon everything, give up everything, and go on the new life travel? So she responded, she said, today I'm going to give you an honest and candid response. And she said she experienced complete freedom, a breath of that real freedom. These are Mani's words. So then this man persisted. He says, but I still don't understand. What do you mean by freedom? So Mani said, the past was cut off. The future was uncertain. It was only the present. It was only the now. And this is a very significant lesson of the new life. We need to be only in the present as we practice, as we step into the new life and practice the new life. Because the past is a frozen lake. The future is unknown. What is now is Meher Baba and we in his presence. One day I asked Erich, when I was staying at Merazad in the early years, 1970, I said, Erich, can you reveal a secret to me? He said, yes, ask me. He says, I said, every day at night you go in and you sit with Baba. What is the last sentence you say to him before you come out to have dinner or before dinner? So Erich said, I ask Baba, beloved Baba, please always keep me in your presence. And I think this is a lesson for all of us. Beloved Baba, please always keep me in your presence. So Supa is around 17, 18 miles from where. And can you imagine people who had never walked in their lifetime were walking 18 miles the first time? So what happened was that Meher Baba, during the new life, had suspended all power and all bliss. He was the perfect seeker, the perfect companion, but he was all-knowing. He had not suspended that. So the way they used to walk was that the men Mandli would walk ahead, the Baba and Neeraj would walk in the middle, and the women Mandli would walk at the back. Suddenly, Baba turns to Mani at the back and says, he quickly walks to Mani and says, quick, quick, give me the orange. The women Mandli used to carry a few fruits. So they would carry the orange. So he took that orange, rushed to Dr. Donkin and gave it to him. Now, Dr. Donkin had a very strange malady. He would become very sick if he did not eat something when hunger struck. And Baba knew what was going on with Dr. Donkin. If he had not had that orange that minute, he would have collapsed. And Dr. Donkin was a walker, a mountaineer. He did hikes and so forth. So he was a very strong man. But Baba, the all-knowing, took care of him. As they walked along to Supa, Dr. Abdul Ghani Munsif, who had been given a cane to walk with, couldn't walk. He was tired. He was exhausted. So Baba held him from the back as he leaned on Baba and kept pushing him so he could walk with the help of the stick and with Baba's support. This was an example of true companionship. Companionship with the beloved. So next, please. So I've already talked about that. Next. So Eric's job was to put up a tent, to take it on, to put it up, take it down, and Baba would sleep in the tent. This is not exactly the same tent that they used in the New Life, but I wanted to give an idea of the tent that Baba used to rest in. So the first time they stopped was in Belgaum, which was on the 20th of October. So I wanted to narrate a little story about Belgaum, which will touch your hearts. I have narrated this many times and you're familiar with it, but the story of Belgaum would be incomplete without the story of Daulat Singh. So even though you may have heard it, I'm going to narrate it. So as I mentioned to you, Daulat Singh was a very devoted disciple of Meher Baba, one of the first people to say yes to Baba, to being with Baba in the New Life. The day he was leaving his home, he was a medical practitioner. His daughter was going to be married 3 days later. So his family pleaded with him not to go. His daughter said, "Father, 3 days later is my wedding, and you are leaving us for what you call the New Life to be with Meher Baba? Please reconsider this." But Daulat Singh left. And the last words of his daughter were, "Now I know that you are not my father. Because if you were my father, you would have stayed for another 3 days to attend my wedding." So they come to Belgaum, and in Belgaum, and you know, they used to sleep under trees and in orchards and mango groves and so forth. So they were resting, all of them were resting, and Baba suddenly gets up, wakes up Erich and says, "Let's take a round of the encampment." So they take a round of the encampment. Suddenly Baba stops and says, "Do you hear some hissing sound?" And Erich said, "Yes, I do. Let's walk in that direction." So they walk in the direction of the hissing sound. And what do they see? Daulat Singh sitting on a log and sobbing. So he was surprised to see Baba and Erich. So Baba says, what is the matter? Have you forgotten the conditions of the new life? That you cannot express any feelings of sorrow or anger or anything? Have you forgotten? He says, no, Baba, I could not help myself. My daughter's words to me were haunting me. Today is the third day. Today is the day she would be getting married. So Baba said, okay, go to sleep now. We'll talk about it in the morning. So in the morning, in true democratic fashion, Baba gathered everyone and asked Daulat Singh to narrate what he had told Baba the previous night. And Baba said, you know what this means. This means that you have to leave the new life travels. But that doesn't mean that you are going to leave the new life. I want you to follow the conditions of the new life to the core. Travel around, beg for food, and then await my orders at some point. So he agreed. And the companions did not carry any money except for Kaka, who carried 6,000 rupees. And I was roughly calculating yesterday that comes to about $75, $80. That's all they carried. And that too was a subject of contention because it was for the animals' fodder and not for the food of the companions. So a little money was given to Daulat Singh and he left. Now what happened was that after the new life was complete and Baba was in Satara, Baba one day was sitting with everybody and he tells Irich, just go out and see if there's someone sitting there. Irich comes and sees and doesn't see any, no Baba, there's no one there. He says, no, go down and see if there's someone sitting there. He says, no Baba, I don't see anyone there. He says, no, go again. Baba always did things in threes, always in threes. He says, go now. So Irich looks very deep down and he sees a small little image of a man sitting on the side of the road. He walks up to this man and he says, oh, Daulat Singh, what are you doing here? He says, I'm here, that I've heard that Meher Baba is here. I've come to take Bhiksha from him. He says, well, let me go and ask him whether he'll give you Bhiksha. Bhiksha means alms given in food, given in alms, for those who don't know the meaning of the word Bhiksha. It's a Hindi word, which was an integral part of Meher Baba's new life. It means begging for food. And what is given to you is known as Bhiksha. So he goes to, Baba says, bring him in. He comes in and he narrates, tell me, what have you done for all these years? He says, Baba, I went back, you asked me to go back home, but to continue with begging. And he says, I went back home and my family was delighted to see me. But the very next morning, I went out to beg for food and my family was horrified. Then the Sikh community in the town came to me and said, we will give you food every day. We'll take care of you. Please, it's an insult to the Sikh community if you go out begging for food. Please don't do that. But he would not listen. So finally, his family started to beat him, be rude to him, and throw him out of the house. So he traveled month after month, begging for food and following the new life. He narrated this to Baba, and Baba had tears in his eyes when he heard this. And he told Daulat Singh that you have fulfilled the conditions of the new life to its perfection. Now, I want you to go back to your house, start your practice, and one day I will come to your house to see you. After quite some time, he went back. He became a successful medical practitioner and led his life. One day, Baba was in the area. I believe he was living in Hyderabad. One day he was in that area, and Baba would always express ignorance. Doesn't Daulat Singh live somewhere around here? So he said, yeah, he lives around somewhere here. And so they found his house, and he was sitting in contemplation on the floor with a chair next to him. So Baba walks into his house and sits on the chair. That chair was for Meher Baba, that when he comes, he will sit on that chair. So he was surprised. And he sat with Baba. Baba said, I'm leaving. And he said, but I haven't given you a cup of tea. He said, I'm happy, Baba said. A few months later, Daulat Singh died. So we now, next slide, please. Next slide. So in Belgaum, Dr. Ghani composed the Song of the New Life, which was put to music by Adi K. Irani. And this song was sung by all the companions every day for the entire new life. And Baba would play the dholak. And what we've decided is that normally what I do is I read the Song of the New Life in Urdu, and then I read my translation of the New Life, Song of the New Life in English. But today we decided that we would ask the famous Baba singer, Gopi from Hyderabad, whose recording we have, to sing the Song of the New Life at the end of the 2-hour period. So I just wanted to mention to you that this was in Belgaum that the Song of the New Life was written, and Baba used to play the dholak every time it was sung, every day. Next. So this is Meher Baba playing the dholak. It's a tabla, but this is not a picture, but this is just to give you an idea of what sometimes the dholak looks like. It is an instrument like the tabla, but it has these drums that you see, the little thing on both sides. Next. We'll hear him at the end of the program. This is Gopi singing the Song of the New Life. Okay. So we may have to step up since we don't have much time as we go along. So this was one of the things that Baba emphasized, even though he was the perfect master and the perfect seeker and the perfect companion, obedience to the leader of the group was of ultimate importance. Meher Baba wanted everyone to obey him to whatever he asked for. Next. Okay. So what was the theme of the new life in your minds? If you had to today follow the new life of begging, langoti, gypsy, and labor, what is the theme? What is the one word that you would say? The word is renunciation. Everyone was asked to renounce everything. Renounce everything and follow the beloved to wherever he took them. So what do we do today? In these uncertain times, in these difficult times, we live as one family. All of you who are on this program are not possibly living with your mother and father, with your brothers and sisters. You have your own lives, you have your own husbands and wives and children and so forth. So we've all moved away from our families. But today we live with the family of Baba lovers. And that is how we've come together as a family of Baba lovers. Next. Okay. So why have I put this picture up here? we're going to talk about renunciation. So at the early part, I said that I was shaping my life on Meher Baba's new life. My personal life, I was shaping as the new life. So I'll narrate very quickly the short, brief story. What happened was that in 1965, I wrote to Baba that I was giving up my college life, my school life. I was giving up my parents, leaving my home and joining him at Merazad. And I had not told anybody except my mother. So when the telegram reached, when the letter reached Baba, he sent me a cable saying, "Renounce nothing but your present attitude." Letter follows. And this was the first hit on the head. But I was so adamant to be with Meher Baba, and I had bought my railway tickets. I was all ready to go and be with Meher Baba at Merazad, renouncing everything. It was a cue that I had taken from the new life. And Baba wrote back to me in a letter saying, "For spiritual aspirants, renunciation is of help. But those who love the avatar and are under his direct guidance do not have to renounce anything. The lovers of the avatar have simply to obey the avatar's instructions and to love him wholeheartedly." But before leaving, I had told my mother that I was going to be with Meher Baba, and she had secretly cabled Baba many, many times that she was afraid that I might be led astray by some yogi Mahatma or somebody like that, and that she wanted him to do something about it, because she was concerned not that I was going to be with him, but that I might get led astray. So Baba sends me a stricter telegram. "Don't be led astray by any Tom, Dick, Harry of a spiritual master. Beware of such cheap experiences and spiritual stunts of spiritual clowns." But I was relentless. I would not listen to Baba. I would not obey him. So Baba sent me another one. "To obey the God-man is the highest form of worship to God in human form." Still I was adamant. And then he wrote to me saying, "Obey me implicitly if one day you want to know me as I am." And that's when I relented and decided not to go to Merazad. And then, of course, he sent me a letter that I should obey my parents. I should study for my exam because I had given up everything. I was not appearing for my exams. I was not studying, all that. Then a few days later, a news item came that there was a Third World Religions Conference, which I wanted to, all I wanted to do at that time was to share Meher Baba's teachings with the world. That was all I wanted to do. So I wrote to Baba, and Baba gave me permission to go to the Third World Religions Conference. So you see me standing on the extreme left. There's the Archbishop, the Greek Archbishop, there's Swami Premananda next to him. And then this is Baron Frary van Blomberg, who was the secretary of the Third World Religions Conference, which was sponsored by Sant Kirpal Singh and Muni Sushil Kumar. This is a whole story by itself. It's a very long story, and I won't go into it at this moment. But suffice it to say that on the morning of the day when I was going to give a 45-minute talk at the Third World Religions Conference to hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of people, Meher Baba sent me a cable saying, "I'm with you at the Third World Religions Conference." And when I ascended the stage, some renegades or somebody who was opposed to Meher Baba, the moment I uttered Meher Baba's name, physically attacked me and tried to drag me off the stage. And that was averted. And then that evening, I went to a Zoroastrian conference. And when I mentioned Meher Baba's name, the head priest of the Zoroastrians walked out. So these were little incidents that happened at the Third World Religions Conference. But I had So I told I wrote to Baba in detail about the conference, but Baba wanted to hear more. So he immediately sent a cable inviting me to Pune to be in his presence and narrate everything to him. But before I left, I wanted to leave a little memento for my parents. When I had decided that I was going to renounce everything, I wanted to leave a memento for. So next, this was the photograph that I left for my parents when I decided that I would renounce. And I also sent it to Meher Baba. In those days, I used to think that like Vivekananda was to Ramakrishna, I was to Meher Baba. One of those things, I was 18 years old at that time. So you have all those little shenanigans of the youth. So next. Okay, so then Baba invited me, and I was in his presence. Again, I won't go into detail of my being with Baba in his presence. It's a talk by itself. But what I will narrate to you was that I was sitting in Baba's presence, and he would interrupt me every few minutes saying, "Do you love me?" And at one point he said, "Do you accept me as God in human form?" And I said, "Yes, Baba, absolutely." At that moment, he took his hands in mine and clapped, and Gohar came out and gave me this medallion that you see, which I'm holding up to the screen as well. It is preserved in beloved archives. And it's got Meher Baba's bas-relief on one side and Mastery in Servitude on the other. So one very important incident that happened at this meeting. So Erich had written to me saying that you are coming to see Baba and to tell him everything about the Third World Religions Conference and your meeting with the Zoroastrian head priest. No questions of Baba. And I was already a working journalist at the time. My head was reeling with questions. And I said, no. So Baba, I told Baba, I said, "Baba, by your grace, I was able to answer all the questions except one. And I got my little window." So Baba said, "What question?" So I said, "Baba, I was able to answer all the questions except one. And the question was, how can Meher Baba say that he's God in human form?" And Baba, like, I could see that he was like, what a simple question that is. So, and then he became solemn, and he turns to me and he says, "You, Naosherwan, are God in human form. Erich here is God in human form. Francis is God in human form. I am God in human form. But I am conscious of my divinity. My job is to make each one conscious of their divinity. And how do I do that? I give you the gift of conviction. I give you the gift of conviction. And it is this conviction that has brought all of you together today. And it is this conviction that will take you from unconscious divinity to conscious divinity. Because Meher Baba is here and now. Next. So, these are some of the thoughts that I have put down: becoming helpless and hopeless, living completely in the presence and not worrying about the future. Next. Now, this is Baba Goes to Sarnath, and I'll quickly go through it. He goes to Sarnath, and he goes into this underground cave that you see over here. And they were only wearing loincloth in Sarnath. And all of them were wearing loincloth. And this is what...
Just to clarify, they were wearing loincloths when they went into the basement of this stupa, this temple,
Yes.
this Buddhist temple. Not everywhere in Sarnath.
No, sorry, not everyone in Sarnath, only Baba and the group. And we have a picture of three slides above. Yes, this one, the one after that. No, I think it's one before this one. This is a recreation of Baba inside the Sarnath cave, underground cave. It was a play that the Sufis had put up, and this was to give you an idea of what Baba did with all the various different, people who were there. And this is what the prayer that Baba said. God, give me strength to follow the conditions 100%. God, help me to speak the truth and not to lie under any circumstances. God, help me to control anger and to keep away from lustful and greedy desires. God, help me to be just, fair, honest, and kind towards my companions and those who come in contact with me. And then they all repeated 7 times, Ho gaya, ho gaya, ho gaya. That means it's done, it's done, it's done 7 times. So then he took all the disciples, including the women mandali separately and the men mandali. If we can go to the image of the Buddha. So this is the actual image that Baba and everybody else, Baba asked each one to bow down to this image of the Buddha in this stupa. This is the original one when Baba was there. Next. So what does Baba mean when he says the new life is endless? Because we are a cooperative family. Meher Baba constantly mentioned, since the time he came to the United States in 1932, he used the word co-partnership towards co-creating the new humanity with Meher Baba. I believe very strongly that the new life is the blueprint of the new humanity. And those who follow the lessons of the new life are on the path to God realization. I truly believe that. And as we move with our companions, sharing each day in these uncertain times, we are in co-partnership with our companions. Next. So these are some of the messages. So Meher Baba's new life was inherently a family life. He set out on the new life with a family of companions, a new kind of family, based not on biological links, but on spiritual links. A new life family. Welcome to the new life family, all of you. Next. This is about Daulat Singh that we already talked about. This is Daulat Singh with Dr. Donkin. Next. Baba in Banaras. It's a picture of it's not a picture of that time. It's a picture of Baba during the Blue Bus tours in Banaras, but this is just to show you him in Banaras. Next. Next. So sharing. So Meher Baba's new life was inherently communal. The companions shared absolutely everything and lived and worked in very close intimacy. There was no money, no living space, and ultimately no possessions whatsoever that could be looked upon as mine and not yours. Next. Okay, so I'll spend just a few minutes in Banaras with what happened. So Ramdas, who I spoke, Babadas, who the bearded man, who I mentioned to you earlier, knew that he had talked about Baba to a doctor called Dr. Khare. Now, Dr. Khare, so when Babadas was asked by Baba that we are going to Banaras, see if you can get any accommodation or place to stay or anything. He said, yes, Baba, I know somebody who I spoke to a few months back. His name was Dr. Khare. So I'll contact him. And so he and another companion went and met Dr. Khare, and Dr. Khare said, yes, we'll be happy to arrange something for the companions. So Dr. Khare was not told who, and all he was told is that they needed accommodation for 20 people. So Dr. Khare's brother-in-law was Dr. Nath, who was also a very good doctor, eye doctor, and very wealthy. So Dr. Khare told him, and the next thing they found was that they were told, Babadas told Irach that, I've arranged for 20 people to stay and so forth. So the day arrived, it had to be by train. The Baba and the group, the women Mandli came. Men Mandli came later on. Irach, they came, and they landed at the train station. And remember, Meher Baba was elder brother. He was not a master. He was not the beloved. He was not the avatar. He was not the perfect master. He was the elder brother in the new life. Nobody had to know that it was Meher Baba. So they go, they land, they alight at the train station, and Baba looks around and he sees two people standing there, a man and a woman. So he says, sends Irach, he says, go and ask them, who are they waiting for? And Irach goes to them, and he had all these awkward jobs to do. He says, wow, who are you waiting? He says, we are waiting for a group that's going to come. He said, group, do you know who the group is? He says, no, we don't know. So Baba, he came and told Baba, and Baba said, okay, pack up, we're going. They already know about this group. So he says, Baba, do they know about the group? So Irach goes again. He says, no, we don't know about the group. All we know is that there are 4 women. So we brought a car because this place where we've arranged for this group is a distance away. So Irach comes and tells Baba, and Baba says, okay. So this was Dr. Nath and his wife. So they were also told to provide breakfast, lunch, and dinner. And then as the days went by, they were asked to provide animals, a spotless white horse. They were asked to provide asses and cows and cattle and bulls and all kinds of animals for Baba's caravan, which they provided. Everything was provided. Next. This is his wife, Mrs. Nath. Next. This is Mr. Khare, and then the next one is Mrs. Khare, and the next one, okay, stop here. Now what had happened was that Mr. Khare, Dr. Khare, had a friend, and he was very curious to know who this man was. Who was the leader of this group? So he had a suspicion. He said, he told his friend, can you find out if there is a long-haired man with a mustache with this group? So he said, I'll find that out. So he hovers around Dr. Nath's house, and Baba one day decides that he would go to Dr. Nath's house for begging, to take Bhiksha. So he takes Adi Irani. And this is a very interesting story. So he takes Adi Irani, and he goes to Dr. Nath for Bhiksha, and Dr. Nath is waiting for him to give him Bhiksha. As Dr. Nath is about to give Bhiksha, one part of the food falls on the ground. Now, according to Hindu mythology, when the avatar Ram went to go out to get bhiksha from various different villages for food, if a part of the food fell down, the giver of the bhiksha would recognize that this is the avatar. So what happens is that as Baba is taking the bhiksha, a little bit falls down, and this man who was standing hovering around, he figures that this is Meher Baba, the avatar of the age, according to Hindu mythology. And he clicks up photographs that he was carrying a camera, and he surreptitiously, secretly clicks this picture of Baba and Adi. So this is the story about this photograph. Next. This is the container in which Baba and the other companions collected food. They had a jholi, a bag, which said, Prem se bhiksha dijiye. Next. I'm sorry I'm racing through because my presentation is usually 7 hours long, but I'm trying to limit it to 2 hours, and it's becoming increasingly difficult. So, next. Okay, so this is the caravan of animals, also painted by Diane Cobb, and the original painting hangs at the Sufi Center in California. So there was an entire caravan.
It's 12 o'clock.
Next. This was the belt around the camel's neck that hangs in Mehrabad Mandli Hall. Next.
Merazad.
Beg your pardon?
Merazad.
Merazad. Merazad. This is another picture of the caravan. Next. So, Meher Baba emphasized that always speak the truth. We must consciously speak the truth. So one day I asked Erich, I said, Erich, if you had to describe Baba's character trait in a few words, not as the avatar or the beloved or the ancient one or anything, how would you describe him? So Erich said, I would describe him as truth and truth's body. This was something that Francis Brabazon had written. Truth and truth's body. So we all say that, oh, I speak the truth. But what we are doing is we are speaking only a part of the truth. We don't know the entire truth, or the other person doesn't know the entire truth. Next. This is Baba's traveling in a bullock cart during these difficult days of the new life. Next. Forgiveness was very important during the new life. And as one of Baba's teachings, forgiveness during the new life, it was forgiveness towards the companions, because a lot of them were very irritating, and people would be irritated, they would be angry, they would hold grudges against another companion. But during his ministry, Meher Baba emphasized forgiveness for all his lovers and for all human beings, to forgive each other. Next. So we all have neurotic tendencies, but what we do is, when we express these anger and intolerance towards others, we shut Baba out with our anger. And Baba tells us that it's very important that we must renounce anger, become conscious of our anger, but that's another subject that we can talk about another time. Next. This is a picture of Meher Baba in prayer. And that's Erich standing there. Next. This was the New Life prayer from Erich's book of prayers, which he wrote down during the New Life, which we have a copy of at Beloved Archives. I'm not the body, I'm not the mind. I'm not this, I'm not that. I'm nothing but a living lie of the truth, that is me. And unless the lie is dead, the truth cannot be. Next. Baba was not against earning a living. He was against or getting rich. He was opposed to how we channel that wealth. That was very important to Meher Baba. Next. This is a photograph of Baba bowing down to Erich. Now this piece of cloth that you see, if you have received the latest issue of the Glow, there's a story by Padri on the opening pages that Baba had asked him, this cloth was very important, and this cloth has been preserved in Mehrabad with the trust. Baba had asked that this cloth be preserved, and Padri had preserved it for a number of years, and now it is being preserved in Mehrabad. So whenever, even if one of the companions had erred or anything, Baba would bow down and ask for forgiveness. Next. Lust. It's a personal commitment. And some of us have learned to sublimate lust. Others give expression to it. It is a personal commitment, but Baba emphasized it many, many times. We have a book that we published many years back called The God Seeker. And in that, there's several messages of Meher Baba to one of his close, intimate ones about how he should sublimate lust. And I suggest that all of you who have not read that book should read it, because it gives you an insight into how Meher Baba works with each one of us on our shortcomings. Next. Again, it's on lust. Next one. Okay, so now we come to Dehra Dun. So the first place that Meher Baba stayed in while on his way into the city was YMCA. And this was an abandoned YMCA where Baba stayed. Now, my father took a number of pictures, as you see, as we go along. The pictures were taken by my father with a small little camera. So this was a picture of the YMCA. Next. Preserving the planet has become an integral part of my life since I was working at the United Nations for 20 years. And Meher Baba was very, very emphatic on preserving the planet, taking care of animals, preserving plant life, and not harming human beings. He emphasized the ecological aspect of the planet. Next. I could narrate a few stories about Shatrughan Kumar because he came during the new life, but I'll only mention one little story where he first came to Baba when he was a revolutionary and was in prison, and called out to God saying, Mr. God, if there is a God, release me the next morning. And he was released the next morning, and then he went back to farming, and my father, Keki Nalawala, and his friend, companion, Keki Desai, met with him when Baba had asked them to look for a place, and then they found this man who owned Marjorie Mafi, and they gave him a plot of land where a house was constructed for Baba and the companions. But what I want to tell you is that they had said that we want to have this land for a spiritual master. And he said, no, don't tell me about spiritual masters. I'm an atheist. So, but when he appealed to God for releasing him, he had, faith had opened up in his heart. So so one day, when Baba was there in Dehra Dun, they were walking along, and he had already dedicated himself to Baba, and Baba tells him one day, he had promised that he would never raise his hand on any member of his family because there was an incident that had happened when Baba first came to Dehra Dun. And he had promised that he would never raise his hand on any member of his family, and especially his wife. And he had given a solemn promise to Baba. So as they were walking, Baba turns to him and says, "You now keep your promise because I have kept my promise to you." And then he realized he had never mentioned this story about Mr. God to anybody. And Baba reminded him that he was the one who released him from prison the next morning. Next. Backbiting, which all of us are so used to in the Baba world. Baba often said it smacked of superiority, "I am better than you," and he shunned backbiting. Next. This is Mrs. Pratt's bungalow. When Baba first came here, he stayed in this bungalow. We can see the inside of the bungalow, the next slide. And the bungalow has now been redone and so forth. But this was when they first arrived in Dehra Dun, they stayed at this. Next. Okay, this is Shatrughan's house in Majli Mafi, where Baba first came. Baba stayed here on the left of this room. There was a room for him, and he first stayed in Majli Mafi. Next. This is my father, Keki Narawala, and this is Keki Desai, his friend and companion with whom they worked together. There are lots of stories about both of them that we won't go into just now. Next. Baba, during the new life, during the conditions, said we should not seek material possessions, and that the new life companions did not seek any material possessions. Next. This is when Baba came to Dehra Dun in 1950. This is my father, this is my mother, and this is me at 36 Lytton Road, which was the headquarters of the new life. Next. Oh, this is just a picture of me asserting myself. Next. Baba always advised his followers to not engage in political activities. There were those who were in like Sardar Amar Singh Sehgal, who was a parliamentarian, and he was asked to continue, but Baba strongly advised his followers not to be involved in politics. Next. Now, this is a picture of me in the new life at Meher Baba's front door. This was the house that Baba stayed in, and Baba is on the inside. During the new life, there were a lot of things that Baba did not do, like celebrating things. And so Baba's birthday, but at this juncture, Baba allowed all of us, several of us Parsis, and some of his followers. So about 20 of us met there in this house where Baba stayed, and his birthday was celebrated, rava was given, tea was served, and this is a picture of me in the new life at Baba's front door. And that's a picture of my uncle standing at the back. Baba was on the inside with the women mandli, and that's when that picture was taken. Next. We won't go into this just now. It was Baba not to accept any homage or accept obeisance. Very important during the spiritual path. Who does not covet honor or shun disgrace. As long as you're honest to yourself, you don't have to be worried. Do not be depressed if disgraced. Next. This was Zoroaster's birthday was celebrated when Baba was in Dehra Dun, but we won't go into it just now. Next. he always emphasized holding on to his daman and remembering his name. Next. This was so important during the new life, holding on to his daman, relying on Baba for all your spiritual needs. So all these that you see here are from the new life tenets that Baba gave to in the initial, before he launched the new life. Next. So everybody had to work during the new life. So money made these puppets and they were sold, but this was a short-lived thing that was done. Very often the women mandli would make things and my mother or my father would buy them. You had to give money to them because everything had to be, everybody had to do something, some job or the other that you will read about in the new life. Next. This was a beret that was knitted by the women mandli and presented to me during the new life that I wore as a young boy for many, many years, and now we have it in beloved archives. Next. Now this was Meher Baba's teacup. So what he used to do is, since this house that Baba stayed in was right across the road from us, 29 Lytton Road, and our home was 36 Lytton Road, and Baba used to walk up and down whenever he felt like it. He would come to our house, ask for a cup of tea, and this was a cup that Baba had used, which we now are preserved at Beloved Archives. So my mother kept tea and cups and saucers ready every time that Baba would come, and some cookies. He would suddenly come and ask for a cup of tea, and my mother would make it and give it, and we would all stand around him, sit over there. But my mother was very conscious of posterity. My mother, Freni Narawala, was very conscious of posterity. And as soon as Baba finished his cup of tea, she would not wash it and put it away. The moment he sat on a pillow or a cushion, she would take it away and put it away. If he wiped his waist with a napkin, she would put it away. And that's what we all have in Beloved Archives today. Next. This was a garland worn by Meher Baba and Dehra Dun. And these were buttons that Baba had given to my father. Next. This was the house that Baba stayed in at 29 Lytton Road. Our house was 36 Lytton Road, and Baba stayed across the road from us at 29 Lytton Road. So that's why I used to walk, I was 4 years old then, and I would walk in and out, and he would walk and come over, and that was how it was. Next. This was one of my uncles. He's talking to Baba and pointing out to him at the entrance of 29 Lytton Road. Next. This was Baba washing the feet of the poor. We can go to the next slide. Baba bowing down to the poor. And the third one, Baba giving money to the poor. So that's the only time he touched money.
Okay,
So
clarification here, this event happened in January 51.
yes,
These are particular poor men of Baba's close disciples. That man with the hat is Sidhu, Baba's old disciple, whose job it was to take care of the mus during the new life. Behind him we see Bhagirat and a few other people. Anyway, just to clarify this, these were men who were close. Baba dispersed this money because it was left to 2,000 rupees were left to him by Pilamai, and she refused to take it back at the new life. So Baba said, "Okay, we're going to give it to some of the needy disciples." This is what these. So he integrated that into his work with the poor, as you say.
right.
That's the event.
So my father had a very hard time rounding these people up, and he finally found them and brought them to Baba, and he was able to accomplish this job. Next. So this is Meher Baba outside my house at 36 Lytton Road. This is where I lived, and he would visit us very often. It's across the road from our house. Next. This is Meher Baba with my father, Keki Narawala. He was photographed outside our house during the new life. Next. This is Meher Baba at 29 Lytton Road, which was across from our house, and he's gesturing, and this was a photograph that my father took. Next. This was a picture also of 29 Lytton Road. This was another uncle of mine, and Baba sitting there and talking through hand gestures. Next. This was the New Life Caravan that was in Dehra Dun. That's my uncle, Ilcha Mistry. That's one of my uncles, Barjor Chacha, and that's my father, Keki Nanawala. And this is the outside of our home. This caravan was operated by bullock carts, by bulls, and this is a photograph outside our home during the New Life Caravan. Next. So this is the entire picture of the caravan. So as you see, this is the Shatrughan Kumar also seated somewhere here. That's my father, that's Barjur Chacha. And this is a full picture of the caravan. Next. That's the caravan that you see at Merazad. And this was put later on, but this is where they all slept on, and the women, some of the women Mandli, they took rest on these things, planks, and the women Mandli would sleep on the floor as well. Next. This was the Mandli residence at Majri Mafi. That's where Baba stayed for a period of time. Next. There was no well, so Baba had instructed my father to arrange for a well to be constructed, and the well still stands there. Next. While the place was getting ready for Baba, he stayed in this house. The Mahant is the head of the Hindus in town, and Baba stayed for a brief period in this house, which was a bungalow. He and the women Mandli stayed here for some time while the house was getting ready. Next. My father used to be the owner of a singer sewing machine company. So he requested Baba to visit his shop. So this is the picture of, this is my father at the back. This is Baba walking through the bazaar as he's approaching the shop. Next picture. This is Baba entering the singer sewing machine company, which my father owned, and my mother ran a sewing machine, a school to teach cutting and embroidery. Next. This is Dr. Duncan at 29 Lytton Road. Now, what had happened was that after Baba left the first, Baba wanted, everybody had to work for a living. So he opened a dispensary for Dr. Duncan. Baba had and my father helped to open this dispensary in front. The pictures that you saw earlier were after the dispensary had shut down. So Dr. Duncan used to be, had got this dispensary open to earn a living. And he and Baba had instructed that, you know, my parents should go and get some patients for him. So it was a very funny situation, and Dr. Duncan would look after those patients. And very quickly, it kind of closed down, and then Baba moved in here with his women Mandli. Next. This was a Swiss doll made by Mani and Mera, which was sold to my mother, and you had to, whatever you made, you had to sell to raise enough funds for, it was called the Boja Fund. It was some money that Dr. Ghani wanted back, and so you had to raise the money and give it to Baba, and Baba would give it to Dr. Ghani for the Boja Fund. Next. Okay, this is the exact spot where Baba gave his Bhiksha in the New Life phase. So what happened was that my mother was asked to cook for Baba, and the food was brought from this side, and Baba came from this side. He was wearing a green turban and kafni, and with all his disciples, he came to this spot near a dry riverbed. My mother, my father, my sister Maruk Modi, who's now Maruk Modi, and myself, we came from one side, and Baba and the disciples came from the other. And my mother says it was as if the sun was rising. That's how I saw Baba. In all his grandeur, in all his beauty, he came, and my parents gave Bhiksha. And then the next picture, next. This is not the picture of Baba wearing the turban. It was wearing at a different time, but this is just to give you an idea of what Baba looked like when he wore a turban. Next. This is Baba preparing to accept Bhiksha at Mafi Majri, the house of Harshatughan Kumar. So, next. And this is my father giving Bhiksha to Baba at Majri Mafi. This is Irich Mistry, Irich Jasawala Kakabaria Baidul. And this is an iconic picture of Baba accepting Bhiksha during the new life. Next. So, we're not doing too well time-wise, so how does this work?
It's a very broad subject. So you're officially going through your perspective of an extremely broad topic. So we appreciate whatever you can give us.
So will you let me?
Naosherwan, our time is not that tight. We have until 2 on our calendar.
Oh, I see.
Uh-huh.
I see. I've been glossing over. Okay. Thank you, Angela.
So that's another hour and a half. So yeah, highlight the best and we'll...
Okay, I'll just highlight the best. Okay. Okay. So we can go to the next slide. Prakash, next. Yeah. Okay. So this is the Meher Baba in conversation in Dehra Dun. This is Kale Mama, who was given the job of reading from various different religious books, and he would read all the time, continually, while Kekobad Dastur would sit outside keeping guard, but he would say Meher Baba's name 100,000 times. Next. This is another these is one of some of the tenets that Baba outlined in his new life mission: to be tolerant, to be selfless, and to live with the lovers of God in harmony. Next. Okay. Now this is a very interesting, during the new life, he pointed out to several of his lovers from different religions. So he told his Hindu lover to sit in a Hindu temple. This is a Hindu temple, and to repeat the name of a Hindu god that he or she or he worshipped. Next, he told Dr. Duncan to sit in a church and to repeat the name of Jesus or whoever he wished to repeat. So Baba had given certain times, and it was a continuous remembrance of a name of God. So they were told to repeat the name of the God that they wanted to repeat. Duncan could have said Jesus or anyone else that he wished. Next. Okay, so then Baba had selected people from different religions, like Donkin was from Christianity, and there was also Ghani was from Islam, and he had to sit in a mosque and so forth. Now, Zoroastrians did not have a fire temple there. So what Zoroastrians have is known as an aramga. You know, all of you know that there's a Tower of Silence where they put the dead. But in a small town like Dehra Dun, they had a place called the Aramga. Aram means rest and Ga means place, a resting place for the Parsis. So Parsis were buried over there. So this was the room where the prayers were held. And my father, despite not being a priest, would also conduct prayers because we didn't have a priest in Dehra Dun. So my father was asked to repeat, and he had said, Baba had told him that he can repeat the name, whoever name he wanted to repeat. And my father Baba suggested that he repeat the name Yazdan, which is the highest of the high, which is the Parvatigar, as opposed to Zoroaster, which is the prophet. So my father was given the job of repeating, and this was at night from 10 o'clock till 12 o'clock, and then again, somebody else would come and so forth. It was a repetition of God's name Baba had instructed. So what happened was that my father used to be, since there weren't people who knew how to wrap a body in a certain way, my father was the one who knew how to wrap the body. But before my father had come to Dehra Dun to live there, one of the Parsis had died. And he was buried there without prayers. And my father, being a very devout Zoroastrian, he always felt that if somebody was buried without prayers, he would be a ghost and a spirit. So that was on his mind. So he felt that any minute, his name was Botwala, the man who was buried. Any minute, Botwala's body would rise and haunt him. This was in my father's mind, and that kept him repeating Yazdan, Yazdan, Yazdan. And suddenly, as he was repeating Yazdan, he sees an image in the distance coming in a long robe, heading towards him. And as he's saying, Yazdan, 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 he turns to Baba, 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 Baba. And who does he see? Meher Baba standing in front of him. And he says, and Baba says, were you worried? What's the matter? He said, yes, Baba. And he tells Baba about the ghost of Botwala, which he thought might rise, since he was buried without ceremonies. Baba smiled and he said, what are you worried about? I'm with you. What are you not? Don't be worried about anything. And then Baba stood with him and said his prayers. He did the kasti with my father. Now the Parsis wear sadra and kasti, and the kasti is something that you wear around the waist. Next slide will give you an image of the kasti. This is in 1950, Meher Baba visited the Aramga. He tied a kasti round his waist while Keki Narawala recited the prayers. Later, Baba untied it and wound it round Zoroaster's photograph 7 times and left the place. This happened at Dehra Dun during the new life. So this is the kasti, that original kasti that Baba wore around his waist, and today it is preserved at Beloved Archives. Next. So this is just a picture that during Baba's stay, Baba visited the botanical gardens. This is just another photograph of Baba in the botanical gardens when he took the entire Mandli, including my parents, to see the botanical gardens in Dehra Dun. Next. Okay, so then during one of these, Meher Baba's pathway is the direct pathway to God. And that Baba emphasized conviction in his divinity. So he gave the example of a twirling umbrella, that clinging onto it as raindrops as he twirls it. So what we need to be is in the center, to hold on to his daman and be in the middle. Those on the edge fall off. But those who stay in the middle, holding on to his daman till the very end. Next. So then what happened is he was constantly visiting Hardwar, Rishikesh, and Motichur. And this is a picture of the Kumbh Mela. The Kumbh Mela, according to the Guinness Book of Records, is the largest spiritual and largest religious gathering in the world. It's also listed in Ripley's Believe It or Not as the largest gathering. We're talking millions of people, millions. And they gather in Hardwar. Hardwar is the place where the Ganges River flows the Ganges River. So Baba took a group of people, including my mother and my aunt. He took the women Mandli, and mainly the women Mandli went with him. He also took Subhadra and his daughter Amrit, who was I think 5 or 6 months old, to the Kumbh Mela in Hardwar. So he took all of us to the Kumbh Mela. Next slide, next one. Now, what happens is that during the Kumbh Mela, all the yogis, mahatmas, sadhus, they come and participate. Now, these are the naked sadhus. They come in a procession, and nobody minds them. And this is a photograph of them in this procession. Now, what Baba did at the Kumbh Mela was that every single day he bowed down to close to 3,000 sadhus. He bowed down personally to 3,000 sadhus. And Dr. Ginde, who checked Baba's neck and back, said that it had been completely smashed as a result of Baba bowing down to thousands upon thousands of sadhus every day. And many of them got intoxicated. Some were false sadhus, some were real, but they were all there for the Kumbh Mela. Next. This is the procession where you have millions of people walking in chariots and in tractors and walking towards celebration of the Kumbh Mela. This Kumbh Mela is held every 12 years. It is held in Allahabad, and it is also held in Hardwar. And Baba took his women disciples to the Kumbh Mela. Next. Now, this is one of the tenets of the new life, is loving Baba unconditionally, relying solely on him. Those who lived with him sought simply to please him. Next. We've already talked of truth. Baba said, do not let go the hand of truth. What is truth? It means oneness, not separateness. Being true to ourselves and others. Next. Now, this is, since Angela has told us that we do have some time, I'm going to tell you a little interesting story about my uncle, Irich Mistry, who you saw in that photograph of the new life, Baba taking that picture. He was the one in the middle between my father and Baba. That man standing there was Irich Mistry. Now, what happened is that Irich Mistry, my maternal uncle, used to live in Shimla in the northern India, and he had a business of dried fruits. So he used to live there, and he used to go around in a jeep, and it's also in the Himalayas. It's a part of the Himalayas, and it snows very heavily. So what happens is that you still have to travel. So he had a jeep that he used to travel in, he would deal in dried fruits. So he would carry them from one place to another, and he had deep faith in Baba. Baba used to call him his court jester, and because he would make Baba laugh with the corniest of jokes. And Baba would ask him, he says, he would say, Baba, that I have this cantaloupe. So Baba says, how big was the cantaloupe? And he would show Baba the size of a big cantaloupe, and Baba would laugh, and Baba used to call him his court jester. So he was traveling from one place to another in Shimla, and he was in his jeep, and the ground was snow covered. And as he was traveling, his jeep skid, and it rolled over many times into the ravine. And what he experienced, all that he could say is, Baba, Baba. And he discovered that he saw, or he imagined, that the jeep fell in a palm of snow. He either imagined it, or he saw it, or he fell into a palm of snow. There was a palm that took the impact of the jeep. So the jeep automatically turned on its side, on its wheels. He got off, dusted himself, started the jeep, and went back. He immediately rushed to Baba in Merazad. He was always permitted to come to Merazad. Anytime Baba was in seclusion and he wanted a little relief, he would call him Ilcha Mystery, Ilcha. And Irich Mystery would come and would make Baba laugh with his corniest of jokes. But he would make Baba laugh during a period of intense seclusion. So he came to Baba and he threw himself at Baba's feet and thanked him. And Baba said, I didn't do anything. I did not do anything. It's your faith and you're calling out my name. He called out Baba's name, and that's what saved you. And it's similar, I will not go into that story, but similar situation happened with my father in Chakrata, which is on the border of China, where his bus was about to fall off, and he calls out to Baba, and an English woman turns up in a car, and she gets out of the car, and as the bus was teetering over the edge, she pushes the driver aside, turns the wheels, pushes the train, the bus on the side of the road, and people get out to thank her. She was nowhere to be seen. She was gone. Nobody knew where she came from. So that's what Baba does when people call out his name. Because when you hold on to his daman, it is incumbent on him to protect us, to save us from calamities. But it has to be from the bottom of one's heart. Next. So Baba, this was one of those rare photographs that we were able to get. It's the Goyal's Hotel where Baba stayed in Hardwar, and all of them used to gather on the balcony to see how the Kumbh Mela was going on. The next slide, next is Baba's room. This is Baba's room at the Goyal's Hotel. This man used to run, he was also a disciple, later on became a disciple of Baba. And he was to run a hotel, especially during these periods. And he had given this hotel for Baba and his manli for that stay for 3-4 days. Next. Don't worry, be happy, I will help you. Now, how did this word garlic faced came about? Very often when Baba used to write a lot of letters to Dr. Donkin, and he used to feel very morose. He used to feel very morose because he could not join Baba soon enough. So Baba would write to him saying, do not be garlic faced. Don't worry, be happy, I will help you. Now, don't worry, be happy, I will help you. It's not just something that we've heard over a period of time. When I was going through a very bad patch in my life, when Baba was saying that I cannot come to him, Baba would often say to me, don't worry, be happy, and I will help you. At those times, these were simply words, but later on, they became very meaningful. Next. Baba wants us to hold on to him, the reality, not the husk of religion. Baba did not emphasize caste, creed, and religious ceremonies. One day, what happened was that Baba was in Hyderabad, and thousands of people were collected for his darshan. And Baba was not going to make any statement or any comments or any discourse was not going to be read. And, you know, whenever there were crowds, his mandi would kind of circle around him just in case the people who had come to see him would get over anxious and rush the stage to take his darshan. So they were all seated there, and there was this crowd of people, and there was Baba had not told Irach that he was going to give him any message or any discourse or anything at all. So Baba suddenly tells Irach that I want to give a message. And now we're talking about the Hindu heartland, where rites, rituals, and ceremonies are predominant in the Hindu heartland. So Baba says that he tells Irach to tell the crowds, it is time that religion goes and God comes. Rites, rituals, and ceremonies cover me. Pure love reveals me. And this was something that was unprepared, and Baba said this to, and a lot of people at that moment understood that those who finally came to Baba were able to give up the subject of caste or creed or religious ceremonies and only hold on to his Dharman. And Baba said what was important was holding on to his Dharman was more important than holding on to religious ceremonies. Because that he called was the husk of religion. The core was the grain. Next. So now we've come to the Kojagoda cave. And Baba had instructed Kishan Singh, who was one of the disciples in Dehra Dun, to arrange for, we can go to the next slide because that's the slide I think, I'm sorry, it's not the next slide, but I'll show you that slide, I think it's there, that these were various different objects, yes, this one. These are, Baba had instructed that they make little miniatures of the various different religious symbols. And it had a lot of significance. So when Baba sat in seclusion and all these various different symbols that were made, Prakash, you can go back to the Kojagoda cave. So this was the cave where Baba sat in seclusion, and these symbols were brought in, and he did his universal work inside it. But what had happened is that Irach was asked to bring these little statuettes into this cave, and he was bringing it in a car, and the car rolled down the cave on this, and poor Irach thought that they would all get broken, but they remained intact. They were brought. Baba spent time in the Kojagoda cave, and Now, around this cave is a temple and a mosque, which is still there. Those who go to Hyderabad can actually see these places. These are beautiful places of pilgrimage that Baba lovers hold it. It'll be interesting for you to know that tomorrow, Sunday, today is Saturday. Tomorrow, Sunday, the Baba lovers in Hyderabad are going to hold a reunion of the new life at the caves, at this cave. And it's wonderful to visit it. Next slide. Now this is the palace of the Nizam of Hyderabad, one of the palaces of the Nizam of Hyderabad. And these are all the people who were in the new life, the no-walas, the yes-walas, and the arrangement-walas. All of them were invited to the Hyderabad gathering, the New Life meeting in Hyderabad. This is my father that you see. I don't know whether you can show my pencil.
Upper left.
Huh?
Upper left.
Upper left is my father. This is Munsif. Yeah, Munsif. Vasudev Kane, Daulat Singh. So all those people whom we've mentioned, Minu Kharas, Iraj Jasawala, all the people, Keki Desai that we've talked about, these are all, everybody gathered at this New Life meeting. Shartugan Kumar. So all of them gathered at this New Life meeting. Next. This is the religious symbols, which are now in Mehrabad. So then they decided to go back to Mehrabad. From Hyderabad, they decided to walk back to Mehrabad. And in the way, there was the mosque at Imampur. Now, this mosque was an abandoned mosque, and it was nightfall. So, Baba, many of you must have visited the mosque when you traveled with Iraj Jasawala, who took people to the mosque. So, we go to the next slide, where Baba rested. This is the spot where Meher Baba rested. So they were resting at night, and Iraj would keep guard, and all of them would rest before they would start off in the morning. So Baba always insisted on complete peace and quiet. And Baba was about to take rest when he suddenly heard a sound. So he asked Iraj, find out what this sound is. And the sound was of a pigeon cooing in its nest. So Baba said, pick it up and throw it out, the nest. And he was about to pick it up and throw it out, Iraj, when Baba said, stop. This would have been a total violation of our new life conditions. Stop. And Iraj stopped. And Baba said that everything would have been wiped clean. It would have all been watered out if we had decided to throw the pigeon out. Next. So these are the Manonash companions. Baba started the Manonash period. First is Gustaji, Baidul, Pendu, and Iraj. These are the four companions in the Manonash. Next. Then this is the seclusion cabin atop the hill. Baba went into seclusion. There's a lot more to read and a lot more to say, but I'm keeping it short so that I want to leave a little time for questions and answers if there are any. Next. So then Baba, it was January 31st, 1952, when the dhuni was lit. Erich read something that Baba had dictated. O source of infinite knowledge, Almighty God, you know that I did all that was humanly possible for me in this ordinary state, and I leave the result entirely to your will and sanction. For its fulfillment, may the moment, the hour, the day, the month, the year, the yug, age, be as you have decreed and destined. From this moment, you must guide me to declare in all truth by the 16th of February, 1952, what you have decided. From now on, I free myself from external religious ceremonies that I observed during the new life and the Manonash period. Baba had previously instructed Erich to write these words down on a piece of paper. All rites, rituals, and ceremonies of all religions of the world are hereby consumed in the flames. Baba had the paper in his pocket, and as the dhuni burned, he took it out, tore it into pieces, threw it into the flames, and watched it burn. When the dhuni died out, Baba filled 2 tins with its ash. This ash should not be used by anyone for any purpose whatsoever, he stated. The tins were kept with the other boxes and tins containing the must's gifts. Baba then retired to his cabin. The next morning, Friday, February 1st, 1952, at 7:58 a.m., Baba came out of his seclusion cabin. No sooner did he step out than Nilu, according to Baba's order, loudly invoked Om Parabrahma Paramatma, and then all the companions repeated the same in unison, Om Parabrahma Paramatma. Next. And those dhuni ashes are preserved in the room in Mehrabad in these tins, the ones that I just read to you. And the one that one says, never to be opened. Next. So that was the end of the New Life phase in essence on October 16, 1950. Next. And the Baba had the sermon read in Mahabaleshwar, and I'm going to not read the sermon now, but
now you're going back, and just to clarify, you're going back in time so that people understand.
Yeah, I'm going back in time, because in the sermon, Baba says, let us not hope, because this knowledge is beyond hoping and wanting. Let us not reason, because this knowledge cannot be comprehended or thought of. And Bob, I'll leave that reading of the sermon to you. It's already there. Next. So what do we take? What does, so once we finish with this presentation, I'm going to let you go back to your homes, sit for a while in Baba's presence, and think, what does Meher Baba's new life mean to me? Now, Meher Baba said this very enigmatic sentence at the end of the new life conditions. This new life will live by itself eternally, even if there is no one to live it. What does that mean? What does that mean? To me, I'm going to explain what it means to me. The new life was a shift in consciousness, a tangible shift in consciousness. Baba was the master in the new life. But he was also the seeker of God. He prayed to God continually for help. He gave us 3 prayers as a talisman. These prayers help us awaken the love of God in our hearts as we praise him, ask for forgiveness, and rely solely on him by holding on to his Dharma. So, I was sitting in Baba's presence in 1962 I was sitting in his presence on the stage at the EastWest gathering, and there was this multitude of thousands of people, and there were people were walking past him, and I had a vantage point. I was able to see him all the time and see what he was doing, see who he was talking to. I was right at his feet. And I noticed something that I believe nobody else noticed. And I'd like to share that with you. There were thousands of people in the audience from the East and the West. And Baba would be talking to somebody or gesturing or saying something, and somebody in the farthest corner would say, "Avtar Meher Baba ki jai." And Baba's hand would go to his heart. And I noticed that. Then Baba would continue talking to whoever. There was Shuddhananda Bharti was sitting next to him. There was Erich sitting there. Adi was sitting there. And suddenly somebody would say, "Jai Meher Baba." And Baba's hand would go to his heart. So what I'm saying now is that at that moment I realized that Jai Meher Baba is not just an expression of good morning, good afternoon, or good evening. It's not just something you throw at each other. It's not something
It's 1 o'clock.
that you put on the mug or a pen or a plate. It has meaning. It has meaning. Jai Meher Baba. May Meher Baba be victorious. May he be victorious. And when he says that he is victorious, we are victorious. And it's important for us to hold on to his daman. That is what he means by being victorious. Victorious in his love. Next slide. And I will end this evening's, evening's presentation with this last story. This is the inside of Meher Baba's tomb. January 31st, 1969. I get a phone call in the morning telling me that Meher Baba has dropped his body. It was the first day of my first job at the Times of India. I go there, I meet my boss, and I tell him, "Sir, I need leave." He's shocked. "First day, first job, you want leave? What's wrong with you?" I said, "Yes, sir. Fortunately, the Times of India was on his desk. Sir, my master, whose picture that you see over here, passed away, and I need to be with him at this time." He says, "Okay, but come back quickly." I was a cub reporter at that time. I had just joined the Times of India. It was my first job as a reporter. He says, "Come back as soon as you can." I said, "Yes, sir." I was wearing a thin suit at that time. The train station was across the road from the Times of India building. I take the train. I land at night. I had been to Merazad, which I haven't narrated to you because we haven't had that context, which was 40 days before Baba dropped his body. That was the last time I met Baba in the body. But I had never been to Mehrabad because when I had met Baba in 65 and I wanted to go to Mehrabad, he had sent me for some physical tests and he felt that I should not go to Mehrabad. So I had not gone to Mehrabad, and this was my first trip. So I had no clue where Mehrabad was or how would I get there. So I land there at Ahmednagar station, pitch dark. There was just a tonga standing there. It must have been around 11:30. So I tell the tonga man, do you know where Meher Baba's place is? He said, yes, sir. I can take you there. So I get into I had just a few rupee notes in my pocket. And I go in and I sit in the tonga and he takes me. It was on the Don Manmad Road. In those days, there were no buses, no trucks, no people, nothing. He was driving at midnight and suddenly in the middle of nowhere, he stops. He says, yes, sir, here is Meher Baba's place. I said, what? There was pitch darkness everywhere. I couldn't see a thing. He says, yes, sir, this is Meher Baba's place. I was standing on the Don Manmad Road. He let me off and I see some white shadowy building in the distance, which looked like Baba's tomb, but I couldn't really make it out. So I walk up, falling. There was no pathway. I was walking up and I come closer. It's the tomb. I see no one there. I see at that moment before, when the tonga guy dropped me off, I got the feeling that this is all a mistake. Meher Baba has not dropped his body. Otherwise, if he had dropped his body, there'd be thousands of people here. But as I walk up, I see some people sitting there with blankets over their head. Only there was one man sitting with a quilt over his head. So he raises the quilt and I see Eric Jasawala. And he says, oh, Noasherwan, you've come. Go quickly and take Baba's darshan before the crowds come. Go quickly. So do you have a flashlight? I said, no. He gives me his flashlight. I go into the tomb. And in those days, there was no awning or anything. There was no awning. It was a sheer door and you just had to open the door and go in. And then you went down 3 steps and there was Baba's body was in the crypt. So I sat on the steps and I closed the door. So I sat in the tomb and said the Master's prayer, repentance prayer. I remembered the times that I had spent with Meher Baba, all that he had done for me. And I thanked him profusely. And then I said, Baba, I want to do something for you. You've done so much for me. I want to do something for you, Baba. What can I do for you? And the thought crossed my mind that I would write his biography. And that eventually was The Beloved. But I missed out on one little point, that when I first heard that Meher Baba had dropped his body, a friend had called me on the phone in Bombay and told me about it. And as soon as that phone call had come, the thought crossed my mind, what will I do without him? What will I do without him? What will I do without him? And that thought had carried over with me to the tomb. What will I do without him? I was totally dependent on Meher Baba. I'm just exaggerating, but if we had a cold, we would write to Meher Baba, what should we do? I'm just exaggerating that, but I mean, the smallest thing we would ask Baba. And now there would be nobody to ask. So we had that kind of intimacy with the Beloved. So when I said, what can I do with you? This thought crossed my mind that I would write his biography. So as I was sitting, I said all the prayers. I was putting the torch on his face. I was holding his feet. And you couldn't go down, you could just go down the 3 steps and hold on to his feet, just wouldn't let his feet go. And I would put the torch, the flashlight on his face, keep staring. I was then getting very tired because I'd come straight from Bombay. My hand was going limp. So at one point, my hand went limp, and I put the torch on his face, and Meher Baba opened his eyes. He opened his eyes and looked at me. I said, Baba. And I turned the flashlight away. And I took the flashlight again on his face. His eyes were closed. At that moment, that thought, what will I do without him, just totally vanished. Vanished. And the thought entered my head, I'm always with you. I'm always with you. I'm always with you. And if you take away anything from this presentation today, that is all I would like you to take away from this presentation. That Meher Baba is always with you. He's with you now. He will always be with you, always, always be with you. He's present, he's now. All you need to do is to hold on to his daman with both hands. Avatar Meher Baba ki jai. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Mr. Ramarao?
Jai Baba, sir. Jai Baba. Sir, Jai Baba is very nice, very talk, very nice, very excited. The entire new life in nutshell with it to us, he gave very nice speech, very nice. And one more question, Naosherwan, one book he wrote on that lust, and what is that book name? Hello.
Nosh, you're muted. Maybe you won't unmute yourself, Nosh.
What book are you referring to?
Here you told in the speech one
Yes,
on the last.
yes, I'm referring to the beloved, the life, work, and teachings of Meher Baba.
No, sir. One book you referred regarding lust.
God Seeker.
I refer to the God Seeker by Minu Kharas.
God Speaker. Acha. Okay,
God
sir. Right.
Seeker by Minu Kharas.
Yes. Okay. Thank you, sir. Very nice, sir. Very nice, sir, speech. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. I wanted to mention to all of you is that next October we would like to have a longer presentation of the new life at Beloved Archives, and all of you are invited. It will be a 7-hour presentation. We've already held these presentations in Mehrabad and in Los Angeles and in Oregon and in Chicago. So all of you are invited to come to Beloved Archives next October if things are a lot better at that time.
Okay.
Noshji, Mikhail has a question. Go ahead, Mikhail.
Yes.
No question, just saying thank you. That was a very, very, very touching and full and fulfilling and very beautiful talks. Thank you very much.
I remember coming to your house in Jerusalem.
Yeah, I remember that. That was very precious too. Thank you.
Jai Baba to all Baba lovers in Israel.
Jai Baba.
Jai Baba. Jai Baba.
Dinku may have a question or a comment. Go ahead, Dinku.
Jai Baba. Thank you so much, Noasherwan. It was a wonderful, wonderful talk. And just a question. When you mentioned that about Baba doing the kasti,
yes,
I thought he didn't wear the kasti. He only wore a sadra.
Okay. So Dinko, let me explain that to you. what happened was that Baba had asked my father to have a sadra, an additional sadra and kasti ready for him. So my father was already wearing a sadra and kasti. So when Baba came into the Aramgah, he came and he stood in front of Zoroaster's picture. There was a picture of Zoroaster and a small diya, which the Zoroastrians put in front. And my father and Baba did the kasti together. And then Baba took the kasti out. He unwound the kasti and he put it 7 times around Zoroaster's picture. And then, so he left the kasti, and that's how the kasti is a part of Beloved Archives. So that was the story.
Okay, so that was your father's kasti actually, not
My
his.
father, no, but that was the one that Baba, he had brought for Baba, and Baba put it around his waist. No,
Okay.
my father had his own kasti, and my father had brought a kasti for Baba.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
Remember the 4 phases in the new life.
Yes.
And the last one, I believe, is labor life.
Yes.
And did Baba sometime indicate that I left it for the humanity to lead that part of the life? The labor life.
I have heard something to that effect. I'm not absolutely certain, so therefore I won't venture. But the 4 elements were pretty much implemented during the new life. The 4 elements that Baba talked about, the Langoti phase and the begging phase and so forth.
Okay.
Thank you so much, Naosherwan. I don't have the words to express my gratitude.
Thank you, Baba.
I want to ask you a question about prayer.
Yes.
So Baba says to us, no political engagement. And I just want to ask you to give all of us some insight. Is voting, writing letters about who we think should be the president and getting people to bring food and water and chairs to these long lines, and especially, Baba says, don't pray to me for a particular situation such as the president who would be a much more righteous person. Could you talk about voting as a righteous action, how to pray for the one we'd like, if we should at all? And I've written letters to various senators, bring food, bring water, drink, carbs, so that people can go through the 8 to 12 hours of waiting to vote, and people who wouldn't want to vote will come to vote.
Let me give you an answer. I'll give you an answer to this. I would refer you to Meher Baba's circulars that he issued during the war. And those circulars that he issued, where he encouraged his followers, they all asked him, they all turned to him and said, Baba, what should we do? What do we join the army? What do we do? So Baba gave very clear-cut instructions. I don't have them with me over here, but he gave very clear-cut instructions that follow the dictates of your government. And to somebody who asked Baba the same question about joining the army during the Vietnam War, Baba gave the same answer, that follow the dictates of your government. If your government needs your service, give the government your service. But do not actively go and enter politics. Now if you, let me give you one particular example. Sardar Amar Singh Sehgal was a member of parliament. He was a devoted Baba lover. So he would stand in the middle of the parliament. It's like somebody standing in the middle of the Congress or the Senate and telling them that you really don't know what you're talking about, let me tell you what Meher Baba has to say. There was another Baba lover, very bold, very dynamic. His name was Group Captain Manohar Sakre. He and his wife Mona were dedicated, devoted Baba lovers. He was a very senior officer in the Air Force, and he was privileged to sit on the War Council when India had the war with China. What he did was, he took a copy of Meher Baba on War and put it in front of all the ministers and all the members in the War Council, including Jawaharlal Nehru. So what Baba said was, don't involve yourself in politics. Don't get embroiled in politics. But if you have to serve people selflessly, by all means, serve them. If you had the privilege of taking a glass of water and giving it to somebody, by all means. But he did not want, there were people who were meant to be in politics, who were meant to participate in politics, and Baba encouraged them. That if that's the role, like Amar Singh Sehgal. But those who were not cut out for that, he kept away from politics. And time and again, he said, keep away from politics, time and again.
Okay, Baba. Thank you, Noshi.
Jai Baba.
Thanks, Jeff, for the question. And Michael and Lakshmi have a question. Please, Michael and Lakshmi, unmute yourself. Thank you.
Yes.
Yes. Hello, Jai Baba and Naosherwan. Thank you so much. So my question, well, here it is. So for decades now, we all focus in on October 16th, the New Life, the books, you know, this talk. It's a topic of our attention. And it's constantly yielding things for us in ways to connect with Baba. My question is, during Meher Baba's life, in the later 50s or in the 60s, when all of the accounts that I've read, I'm not seeing any references that he would make to the New Life period, except, you know, perhaps little anecdotes. We make a historical and kind of an archetypal, emblematic inquiry about it. What does it tell us that's useful now? But I'm just wondering, during his time, do you recall Baba making references to the New Life?
Okay, great question. Now with Meher Baba, as you have followed his life, it was never going backwards. It was always going forwards. So the New Life phase was a phase, an important phase of Meher Baba's ministry. Then came the Manonash. Then came the fiery free life. So each phase of Baba's life embodied its own meaning, its own significance. The fiery free life was in the West, was in America. That's when he had the accident. That's when so it was always moving on with his several different phases of his life. But that does not mean that we today do not derive lessons from the phases of his life. So when Baba said that the New Life would be endless, even if there's no one to live it, it simply means that he has given us a set of guidelines. And what is incumbent on us is to follow those guidelines. We don't have to, and Baba taught that hitting with a hit on my head, that we don't have to give up our families and our homes and our jobs and things and go out walking on the streets. Meher Baba did it for us. He did it for us so that we have a sense of understanding of how we should lead the new life. Because now, Michael, when everything is going stir crazy around us, what is it are we experiencing? We're experiencing hopelessness and helplessness. What's going to be our next step? We don't know. So what is Baba telling us? Baba is telling us, keep me in your presence now, now. Keep me in your presence now, because I am the only salvation for you. Not your father, not your mother, not your sister, not your brother, not your families, not your husbands or wives. I am your only salvation. Look up to me and hold on to your daman with both hands, so that it does not slip. If anyone would like to write questions to me, and I'll be happy to answer them as a result of this sharing, my email is meherbaba@aol.com.
Also,
May I make one comment concerning the new life?
Yes, Peter, please.
And Baba's remark, Michael, about that is that you'll find when Baba established the trust deed in 1959, one of the objectives for the trust at Mehrabad was to provide spiritual training for just a few people who were really interested. And he stressed that the focus should be on the new life of them. So you will find that comment there in the original trust deed. That is there. So Baba did give emphasis to that. And it is, you can see today, Naosherwan just touched on the subject. It's a very broad subject. So much.
Thank you. Thank you.
Prakash, it's mentioned.
Go ahead.
I raised the hand, but my question to Naosherwanji, it's mentioned Nori. I'm from Hyderabad, Jai Meher Baba.
Jai
And
Baba.
Peter, Jai Meher Baba, Peter.
Hey, Baba.
My question to you, Baba started a pace of the Manonash, that is alienation of mind. But Baba also did the 5 symbols, replicas of all the religious symbols, like Parsi Spy temple, mosque, church, in this thing. Is that religious symbols have some impact on the Manonash alienation of mind, or both are different?
No, the symbols Baba used at the beginning of the Manonash. The Manonash was the period in Hyderabad.
Yeah.
So what Baba, particularly down south, Meher Baba always used one particular impression, one particular message. It is time that religion goes and God comes. And that is why even with I'm looking at Baba's sermon where he said, it is time that religion goes and God comes, and that rites, rituals, and ceremonies cover me, pure love reveals me. So despite the fact that Baba went through these phases of with the temple, with the things in the cave, the various different symbols in the cave, his basic symbol was that all this does not matter. This is what really matters, is the annihilation of the mind. Annihilation of the mind is what is important. All this does not matter. So all these were external symbols that do not matter. What matters is what's in your heart and what you reach out to each one in your daily lives. That is what matters.
through these religious symbols, he engaged people from all around the world through all these different religions. But remember that the culmination of Mononash was the Duni at Marazad, where, as Nash mentions,
Yes.
all rites, rituals, and ceremonies of all religions of the world are hereby consumed in the flames. That was the end. And Baba used that term, the end, in the New Life from the beginning in the meetings at Mehrabad. By the end of the meetings at Mehrabad, whenever he referred to the end, you'll notice that the end is always capitalized, cap-E, end. That implied Mononash.
Right.
That's the only answer. That's the answer to the mystery of the new life, the impossibility of seeking God, annihilation of the mind.
See, that's because I thought my impression was that the symbols is the importance of the symbols used in the Manonash cave was ended on 31st January with the Duni. That was I was feeling, because all the religious, all the rituals of all the religious are kept to the fire, and that is the probability I was under the impression. I may be right, I don't know, Baba knows.
That's true. That being said, those symbols are now important artifacts for us in the history of Baba's life and work, so they're preserved. People want to see those things out of interest. So there are, of course, all these things are preserved as artifacts of Baba's life and work.
Thank you.
Once we open up Beloved Archives, we'd like to have all of you to come over and spend time here.
Hey, Baba. Thanks, Meher Chen. And
Thank
we have
you.
a couple of people who have questions, Naoshi. Priya Gangwani, please go ahead.
Yes, Priya.
Avatar Meher Baba ki jai.
Are you in Bombay?
Thank you. I'm in Goa.
Oh, you're in Goa?
Yes. First of all, I want to say thank you so much for the sharing.
Thank you, Baba.
My spirit is dancing. I am beyond excited and alive. Thank you so much. That was beautiful.
Thank you.
I haven't felt this closer to Baba in a very, very long time. Thank you. These conversations in the end were very, very interesting, and especially the comment around rituals. And I was wondering if Baba made any comments about, say praying to the sun or the moon, Mother Earth, like life around. I find myself so drawn to the life around, and that is essentially my prayer, my personal prayer to Baba and to the life around. And I was just wondering, because it's become a ritual. And if you had any thoughts or something that I could,
Priya,
ponder over.
Priya, I have put together a selection of quotes by Baba on climate change, on climate, on the planet Earth, on various different aspects. So if you send me an email at meherbaba@aol.com, I will respond to you.
Got it.
With those
Thank
quotes
you.
of Baba.
Yes. Thank you so much. Jai Baba.
Jai Baba.
Shilpa has a question, Naoshi.
Yes, Shilpa.
Hi, Nashji, Jai Baba. Wonderful
Baba,
listening
Jai
to
Baba.
you, as always. I had a question, which I've been trying to, with the new life, having started, the phase started again. In terms of trying to explain it to children, right? Like, did Baba have any specific message during the new life period, which kind of, because, I mean, even for me, I understand the life of helpless. To kind of conceptualize that or visually conceptualize it is a little difficult. So I'm just trying to explain that to my children. So I was wondering how, or do you have any suggestions on how we can explain it?
Don't come for prasad twice. I remember that I came twice to take prasad from Baba, and he says, "You've already taken it once." uh, the only thing that comes to mind at the moment is that we must make every effort to tell our children to please Baba. What would please him and what would displease him? We should say that in stark terms, the way my mother used to tell me. When I went through this awful period in my life, I call it awful because the period of renunciation, my mother would be always on my case saying, don't be garlic faced, you're not following Baba's instructions, be cheerful, be happy, be cheerful, be happy. You're not obeying Baba, you're disobeying Baba. So my mother would be constantly on my case. So when you want to translate Baba in simpler language, you tell them what Baba expects of you as a small child: to be happy, to be cheerful, to be thankful, to be gracious, to be forgiving towards others. So the various attributes of God which are in all of us are also in children. We grow up with them. So we need to express those attributes of God as we grow older. As children, we sometimes can't, but we as adults can advise them how we can share those aspects of God with all the children. So that's what our role as parents is.
And if I can expand on that. So there's one of the, now with the Bombay Center, they have the weekly, information on weekly programs, right? And they do have like an activity per week. Do you think it's a good idea to maybe start doing that at home, right? I mean, I know it may become, again, ritualistic, but so like Baba said, right, like when he went through his Bhiksha phase, etc. So maybe like accepting what we have and appreciating, showing that gratitude, because especially now, in the age of instant gratification, where with the click of a button, you get something from Amazon delivered to your door the next day. It's very hard as parents, for us to be able to convey that, hey, listen, the difference between a want and a need, where at this point, Baba in New Life basically gave up everything and, literally took to the streets, right? So I thought it was kind of interesting there.
Whatever brings your children closer to Baba is worthwhile. Whatever brings them closer to Baba, don't for a moment think it's ritualistic, because if it is for Baba, then it is not ritualistic. If it's devoted to Baba and it brings them closer to Baba, stay with it. Stay with it. But Baba needs to be the focus. Okay. I just wanted to put in a little plug. Some people asked me before this earlier, what were you doing during this pandemic and the lockdown and all that? And I wanted to share with you what I was doing. For the last several years, I've been working on a book which is called The Godchild, and the subtitle is When Meher Baba Became God. It's now in its closing stages. It's now coming to an end. It will be about 450 pages or so, with about 155 photographs. And donors have given money for its publication. And I'm hoping against hope that by Christmas it would be out. It's about Meher Baba's early years. Meher Baba as Meherwan. So it starts with Shariarji, it starts with the persecution of the Zoroastrians in Iran, and it ends in 1922 with Baba declaring his mission, with a little bit about Baba's life till 1969. So that's the book that I wanted to share with you, is what I've been working on.
So,
Meher Baba ki jai.
अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय। आ जीना तुम्हें गर नई जिंदगानी करो तर्क दिल से ये दुनिया ये फानी सुनो मेहर बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेहर बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेहर बाबा खुदा के भरोसे पे हम जा रहे हैं कसम से इरादों को गरमा रहे हैं गजल नामुरादी की हम गा रहे हैं गजल नामुरादी की हम गा रहे हैं बला और मुसीबत को बुलवा रहे हैं सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी उम्मीदों करो ना नवादों का शिकवा न इज्जत से मतलब न जिल्लत की परवाह न गीबत किसी की ना खतरा किसी का यही रंग है अपनी अब जिंदगी का सुनो मेहर बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में सब आशिकों की कहानी ख्यालों में उलझन है न बाकी न बंधन है नखवत न गुस्साना कुछ काम कंचन है मजहब से रिश्ताना कुछ फिक्र तन मन सवारे किश्ती में शेको भी रहमन सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेरे बाबा की न अपने लिए कोई छोटा बड़ा है मुरीद और मुर्शद ना मौला रहा है अकबर तबा हम जो रिश्ता जुड़ा है हमें दर्द व गम में मजा आ रहा है सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेरे बाबा की न दुनिया न उकबा न दोज़ख न जन्नत न सिद्धि न शक्ति न कश्फो करामत ये सब नक्शे बातिल हुए दिल से रुखसत जो कुछ है वो है हाल की कदर कीमत सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेरे बाबा ये अल्फाज बाबा के सुन दिल से प्यारे शुमार अब मेरा है बराबर तुम्हारे बजा लाओ उनको खुदा के सहारे सुनो मेहरबान की खामोश वाणी इसी में सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो अगर आसमाने मुसीबत भी टूटे सदाकत का हाथों से दामन न छूटे चमन या सोहिर माने हर चंद लूटे चमन या सोहिर माने हर चंद लूटे तवक्कुल से इनमें लगे बेल बूटे सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेरे बाबा की चले दिल पे चूरिया मगर लब हो फंदा ये एक रम्ज है जिसको करता हूँ रिया तेरी तंग दस्ती में दौलत है पिन्हा गदाई पे तेरे करे रश्क शाह सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी है बेशक खुदा और बरहक नबी है बहर दौर अवतार हरदम वली है हमें तो फकत बेबसी बेकसी है हमें तो फकत बेबसी बेकसी है कहूँ क्या तुम्हें क्या नई जिंदगी है सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेरे बाबा की खामोश वाणी इसी में है सब आशिकों की कहानी सुनो मेरे अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय
Jai Baba. Thanks, Narji. That was wonderful. There are a lot of people who thank you for this wonderful talk.
अवतार मेहर बाबा
बाबा
की
की
जय अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय अवतार मेहर बाबा की जय Thank you so much. Jai Meher Baba. That was fantastic.